There are many older warehouses with challenging sloped floors in my area, in my market. Can you please talk about proper anchoring and limits to shimming?
There are limits to the height of a stack of shims that you can have. And it is, I believe, if I remember well, it's 3 times the diameter of your anchor. So you have a 1/2 inch diameter anchor, which is rather typical. You cannot stack more than 1.5 inches. And by that time, when you're at 1.5 inches, you're not too far from using the other hole in your upright. And there's no problem with having staggered beams, kind of, on the left, because you're deep down, the floor is going down. Maybe you have 3 holes before your first beam, and on the right, you might have 2 holes only, and that's okay. Now, all of this, right, is governed by the amount of out of plumb that it's going to generate if you're not straight. If the whole rack is, the beams are all going slightly in a slope, the whole rack wants to follow, because these connectors are the ones providing lateral stability down aisle. Cross aisle is another question where it's a bit easier to just shim the back leg because the distance are smaller. It's got a much bigger effect in shimming. But just so you know, and I'm just going to repeat that the basic rule is you shouldn't have more than 0.5 inch over 10 feet of height of out of plumb. And 0.5 is very typical in cold form steel columns. It's the size of your front hole. If it's a teardrop, the teardrop is a little bit bigger. I think it's almost 3/4 inch. But that's a reference, just so you know. At 5 feet, if you've got a 1/4 inch, you're at that limit now. So you're trying to shim the system so that it stays straight once you load it. And the tolerances for unloaded racks should be half of the loaded rack tolerance that I just gave you. So it would be 1/4 inch over 10 feet of horizontal deflection maximum. So I hope that gives you an indication. The MH 16.1, which is the US pallet rack design code, has indications on these kinds of limitations.